So welcome everyone. Liz and I are really excited to talk to you today about a few things. First, we want to discuss the state of needs in Nova Scotian communities. Where are the opportunities where we can jump in and help? Second, we want to talk about the concept of Serve Nova Scotia as a driver of collaborative solutions to meet these needs. And third, we want to talk about the unique role that you can play as business leaders in helping meet these needs in our communities. So when we talk about community change, we're not just talking about fulfilling an impact mandate or social responsibility with our organizations, although these are really important and helpful guides and goals. When we're talking about community change, we're talking about impact in our own neighborhoods. So before we start talking about the needs, I want us to think about who are the people in our neighborhoods. When we're talking about community change, who are we talking about impacting? It's our friends and our family, our company leaders, our colleagues, our partners and associates, our customers and our clients, our neighborhoods, the ones in which you live and operate. These are our communities, and together they're our responsibility. So I want to introduce us a little bit to the needs that we're seeing around us. So what are the state of needs in our neighborhoods? The recent Feed Nova Scotia report that was published in 2023 found that 5.4% of Nova Scotians in 2023 accessed a food bank. That's roughly 1 in 20 people. Of that population, 44.8% cited that they had post-secondary education. That's about 1 in 2 people. And 21.8% of these people cited employment as their primary source of income. That's about 1 in 5. These statistics help us to understand who is experiencing food insecurity in our neighborhoods. They're people with and without college degrees, people with and without full-time employment. And what about where our neighbors are living? In the NS Provincial Housing Need Report that was published in 2022, we found that between 2019 to 2022, the median price of rent increased 24%. The median price of purchasing a house increased 63%. At this time, vacancy was reported below 1%. In a survey that was cited in the same report, they surveyed 20,000 Nova Scotians. And of those people, 54% said that they spend 30% or more of their pre-tax income on their housing. And let me ask you this, if today you suddenly lost your housing situation, do you feel that you could find housing that is affordable, available, and comfortably met all your needs? 93% of Nova Scotians doubted that they could. And how are our neighbors feeling? In the 2022 Canadian Community Health Survey, in just 1 year in Nova Scotia, the sense of belonging to a local community decreased among Nova Scotians by 6.8% to 69%. The sense of good health decreased 5.4% to 52.8%. And reports of good mental health in just 1 year among Nova Scotians decreased 10.7% to 49.4%. But in all of this, there is good news. Nova Scotians care. There are innovative initiatives and contributions that are being led by key change makers to address these needs. Local businesses, churches, government groups, institutions of higher education, and impact organizations are creating change in our communities. And their efforts are valuable and they're incredibly impactful. Some of these efforts are also siloed, they're individual efforts. And when we have isolated efforts, we do risk reproducing impact, duplicating efforts, and missing out on unique opportunities to share expertise and resources when we collaborate. So Serve Nova Scotia wants to increase collaboration. That's why we exist. It's a program that's led by a diverse team from sectors of business, nonprofit, church, and government work. But we all share one common goal, and that's to increase community collaboration. Specifically, we're working to unite the church sector across denominations and traditions to bring them to the table of other change makers, to be an active participant in collaborative efforts that can increase long-term change for Nova Scotians. So what exactly is Serve Nova Scotia? I'll introduce it to you quickly. It's a program by the Ministries Network, and it's uniting churches across the province to address community challenges like housing insecurity, food insecurity, or mental health. And our vision is to see Nova Scotian communities transformed by the service of their local churches. So we do this in several activities. First, we're uniting the church to work together. We're connecting congregations with one another and helping them to build trusting relationships. Second, we're equipping churches to identify and meet needs in their neighborhoods. We want to ensure that their collaboration is going towards meeting the most salient needs in their communities, even if these are needs that aren't apparent at a first glance. Third, we're connecting churches to resources that can advance collaborative projects, whether that's funding for their collaboration, training to help them help more effectively, or learning from local leaders. And third, we want to connect other community change makers and stakeholders with the church. Many of the groups that we talked about, from impact organizations to local businesses to government groups, share a common goal with churches, and that's to meet needs in the community and invest in healthy neighborhoods. By connecting groups that share this vision, we can form mutually beneficial partnerships and create relationship through shared vision. So now you know a little bit about who Serve Nova Scotia is and why we exist. And now Liz is going to share a little bit about what this looks like in action and how you can be involved.
Thank you, Rachel. So Serve Nova Scotia was officially launched in May. And since that time, in that very short space of time, a lot has actually been happening. So we have been connecting with many different churches across the province. And we've also been working with different churches. We've actually got a couple of groups that have formed, some here, like right here in Sackville, some in Dartmouth, and we're talking to other groups that are also emerging, and we have about 3 that are active and going on right now. And these are all groups of different churches coming together, not only just with churches, but also with some support from activity from the government and activity from community impact organizations to really start looking at different solutions that they can provide to some of the issues that we heard being talked about, such as housing insecurity. Some groups are looking at activities such as, loneliness and belonging, and some of them are looking at food security as well. So we have engaged a number of diverse partners within the community and different stakeholders as well. And at this point, our next steps are quite clear. We're going to be seeking some funding to really help the operations so that we don't keep operating on the side of our desks and using volunteers primarily to do this work and continue to move it along. So when you think about how this collaboration of churches actually comes to life and how Serve Nova Scotia actually supports that happening, I would like to just tell you a little bit about actually a real case study that is coming out of this location and the Sackville location. I'm not looking behind me and I'm seeing people smiling, so I'm wondering what's back there. But there is a group here in Sackville that has actually been meeting here locally. And I just want to take you through the journey of what that process looked like. So the first meeting we had with the group, the churches came together and they spent their time getting to know each other and also getting to talk about what they're seeing in community. You have to understand too that churches have a very unique situation in that they are in community, they've got boots on the ground, and so the issues that you see across whether it's across the province, are very well represented even within the church communities that we see. So they spent some time talking about the issues, and then it was clear that the space they were leaning into was responding to issues around housing. So the second meeting that we had, we were joined by other local leaders in addition to the churches, which included the Sackville MLA, the Honorable Steve Craig. He's actually in the room today. I think Craig is in here. Oh, right out there. Shout out to him out there. And we also invited the Minister of Housing, John Law, and the Minister of Community Services, Braden Maguire. And the reason they were in the room is that the churches were indicating that they had this interest in housing. And they had an interest to also understand how faith groups could support the work in terms of responding to housing needs. And we also got the opportunity to really understand from a government perspective what it is that we could do as churches and how we could be supported. So that meeting left us with a better understanding of some of the resources and how we can practically work in that space. We also had community groups in the room as well, so those organizations were also there to kind of support and also bring in their history and context of what has happened in Sackville in the past. By the time we got to the third meeting, we were really getting down to work, and we used that opportunity to do a facilitated session where Serve Nova Scotia facilitated the group into figuring out what it is exactly, or where within this, because the issue of housing is quite complex, right? It's a really big spectrum. So we facilitated the group into figuring out where in that they can add the most value and how they can work with others. So to give an example, right here in Sackville, we know that there are organizations such as the United Way that has recently actually opened a group of tiny homes that they are working on. So the kind of questions we would ask ourselves would be, how do we continue the work? So if there are organizations doing this, what's the next level that the group of churches can support to elevate the work that's already ongoing? So that's what we spent our time discussing. And if we look at subsequent meetings, they would probably be focusing on resources. What are the different resources that these groups of churches can bring in together? And then as a group, what we'll start to do is starting to look at how we can facilitate other external partners, such as businesses, such as the government, such as bringing in different expertise to really support that group into action. So that's an example of how that actually comes to life when it comes to how these church groups or the support that Serve Nova Scotia delivers to them. So now that you've heard like the important different roles that these collaborative projects can look into, we want to talk a little bit more about you as business leaders. You truly have like unique resources, insights, skills, and expertise. And I mean, if I look around this room today, it's unbelievable what kind of rich resource we have collectively today. We can't do this work without the support of businesses. If businesses are not at the table, it is very difficult to advance the type of work that we're trying to do, and this is why you're here today. So you know best what to bring to the table, but I can think of many different things, such as, in terms, so not just your financial resourcing, but you can be some of the words we heard earlier, mentors. You have skills, you can build, you can inspire others. And when I think about who's in the room today, for every one person who's in here, we can amplify this by you going out there and sharing the work that's happening, bringing more people to the table, and making this work even more like bigger than it is today. So there is all kinds of in-kind activities that you can be involved in, I think, that would really push the work that we're doing forward. So I think this is the reason why today it's very important for us to take a moment to stand still with businesses. So the key takeaway is that you definitely have a role to play. As Serve Nova Scotia works to unite churches and be collaborative, your voice and your insights and your contributions are very much needed to make this work go forward. And if at the end of the day you would leave with anything today, I would say that it's, I think what we would want to inspire in you is the understanding that you're not going to be a bystander as we do this work. You are part of the extended team that's going to make this really possible. And would like you to approach the table and with that ownership and that stance as we do the work today. So all this to say, thank you so much for being here today and being willing to take part in the work that we're doing.